Team Awesome is back!
That's right, Tangled Talk is back, everybody, and we are on week 1. Well, actually, we're on week 2 now of the hiatus. And yes, it is an actual hiatus. The show has not been canceled. It has been confirmed for season 3. So even though we don't know when it's coming back or how, because it might be coming back as a Disney Plus exclusive, it is coming. So we will get a season 3, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And just so everybody is on the same page, season 3 is the final season. There will be no 4th season. It has always going to have been a 3-season series. There was actually a interview done with Zachary Levi back in 2016 before the series ever aired, where he said it was going to be 26 episodes for 3 seasons. I mean, a season for 3 seasons. So he said in this initial number that it was going to be 78 episodes, basically. We have come to realize over time that it is 24 episodes per season instead of 26. So 2 episodes every season has been cut. So you've got these 6 floating episodes that we're not going to see, guys. There's no extra 6 episodes. It's 24 episodes per season, a total of 72 episodes. I know that I personally have been reporting it incorrectly for 3 years.
It's Zach's fault. It's fine.
Yeah, I blame Zachary Levi.
Blame it on Zach.
Yep. But so I know I acknowledge that I have been incorrectly reporting it for 3 years. But the fact of the matter is we are getting 24 episodes per season, a total of 72 episodes. It has always been 3 seasons only. There will be no 4th season. Guys, the crew is almost done with production in the front end of production. So that's the voice acting, the storyboarding, the writing, the revisions, all of that stuff. Everything before they send it to get animated at Mercury Filmworks is almost done. And by almost done, I mean we are days away from them being done. Mm-hmm. There's nobody left in the crew. They're not going to do a season 4. There's like 5 people left. And so, yeah, just...
There wouldn't even be a story. Like, I mean,
yeah.
A whole season worth of story. They wouldn't be able to do it.
I mean, honestly, they really did set it up this way the entire time. They wanted this... Chris Sonnenberg refers to this as between the kisses, and he's referring to the last kiss in Tangled and then the wedding kiss. And so this is a story that spans the end of Tangled to the wedding short. This is going to take us up to the wedding. We don't know exactly how it's going to end. They've already said that they're not going to remake anything that has already been made. So sure, they do homages and stuff, but they're not going to redo the wedding in series style. As much as I'd love to see it, they're not going to do that.
But can we get that wedding kiss though?
Oh, please.
Mm-hmm. And maybe not from so far away this time.
Right in their face.
That they make them have really short kisses in the series.
Well, maybe they can throw us a bone for once.
It's the last friggin' episode. No, so yeah, so I mean,
they did have this falls. I mean, that weird Mageddon. It's just they're you know what? Just do whatever the heck you want, Alex Harrison. He's okay.
No, but I mean, seriously though, this story that they wrote takes up all of the time between the end of the movie and the wedding. So, honestly, guys, there's no space to fit more story in. Mm-hmm. This isn't going to be one of those never-ending story things. So, yeah, 3 seasons, that's it. So, we might be on hiatus, but relish this hiatus, because after this hiatus ends, that's all the Tangled we've got left.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't want it to be over. So, I mean, honestly, every time a new crew member posts their goodbye letter, I, start sobbing all over again. Because it's and the funny thing is that knowing that this series had 3 seasons and that was it, I am still, I'm not ready. I thought I was ready because I knew it was coming from the very get-go. And now that we're on the edge of season 3, I'm no, don't be over. I'm not ready for it to be over.
I think it was that second half of the 2nd season where they just plowed through it and were no, wait a minute. This is too much, too fast. Hold on.
That's actually, that's part of it. So it's I mean, and I'm concerned that they'll plow through season 3 the way they plowed through season 4 of Star. I'm concerned that it will be moved to Disney Plus exclusively, which means it will have to spend more money just to see it.
Yeah. Do you think if they post it on there, it'll just be the whole thing posted?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it'll be a Netflix situation where they're just here's season 3, and we're all huh? Oh God! It's started and it's over all at once. So
yeah.
I don't think I can handle all of season 3 at the same time. I really couldn't. Like,
but then the spoilers, like you'd have to, or you'd have to stay off the internet.
Thing, otherwise, yeah, exactly. I mean, I do it. I totally binge all of season 3 all at once, but like that's not fair to the people who've been invested in this show since the beginning, you know? And we know for a fact that it's going to be on Disney Plus, that the show is going to be on Disney Plus, which will be great because then there'll be someplace people can find it. But like I don't know. Are they going to have it in a situation where like we can actually handle this nonsense, or are they just going to throw it all at us at the same time?
I think if they throw it all at us at once, I think us personally in the podcast should space out the episode. Yeah. So it's not just one big 12-hour episode. Like, here's the entire recap of season.
Oh, that stresses me out just thinking about having to do that.
That would be the worst.
Yeah. Okay. So we're making a pact right here with you listeners right now that if they just drop the entirety of season 3 on us at once, we're gonna do the podcast one episode at a time. Unless there are 2 episodes that like things together, you know, that's like, oh, we gotta do these 2 episodes together. But
then we all get a little extra tangled. We get to live in it for a little longer.
Yeah,
so exactly. There's a plus there, but you know.
Yeah.
It's not all negative.
So I mean, and I know that we said that we don't know when it's coming out, and I've seen speculation September, but this speculation I think is coming purely from the fans, and I think it is coming from the fact that the hiatus between seasons 1 and 2 was 5.5 months, and so people are like, well, 5.5 months from now is September. So that's what I think people are thinking. So there's no guarantee it's coming out in September, guys. So I've also seen people saying June, and I don't know where they're getting June.
Yeah, I just saw on Instagram that somebody was like, the 5th of June. What? And I was like, what? Where?
Yeah, I know.
Not your sources.
I mean, and I understand that, like, okay, so season 3 started in June, or season 2 rather. I'm sorry. Season 2 started in June, and I'm like, but that doesn't mean season 3 will, you know? It's like, because season 1 ended in January, so like you can't use that as your litmus. It's just it doesn't work that way. So yeah, until we have an official announcement from Disney, guys, we don't know when season 3 is starting. And try not to speculate and throw out dates that you heard from a non-official source, because that's a good way to screw up the whole internet. We already experienced that when, you know, a certain website announced when season 2 was picking back up, and they were using the German release dates, and that was wrong, and all of the US was like in a tizzy, and yeah. So let's try not to do that, guys. I'm doing my best to make sure I source everything, because ever since I fell for that, because I'll admit I fell for that. But ever since I fell for that, I'm like, yeah, no, I have to make sure that this is sourced before I will report on this.
Part of me is like, they're not going to have that long of a hiatus again, but then I'm like, they might.
Seriously though, from what I've heard from various crew members, there's like 4 or 5 episodes that are complete at this point for season 3. So like they need to get more under their belt before they'll start airing it, because they can't just be like, okay, well, now we're out of episodes and have to wait for them to catch up again. And as I recall, like, this number is, I'm pulling this out of experience. Nobody has backed me up on this, who's in the industry, but I think it takes them like 2 weeks to animate an episode. Because, I mean, I seem to recall that being the case, but I mean, it could just be like 2 weeks from this point until they're done. So I could be wrong about that. I know that they work on multiple episodes at the same time while they're animating.
2 weeks seems awfully short.
Yeah, I would think so too, considering how long it takes to make a freaking movie. I don't think it would only take 2 weeks to make an episode. So, I mean, maybe it's more like a month. I don't know.
It usually takes like, at least with feature, it takes like a week to do like a couple shots.
Yeah.
Right. Well, of course, features are also more detailed.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
I mean, yeah, but I've got
a general idea.
Hey, if anybody from Mercury is listening, feel free to message me and let me know how long it takes to make an episode. Thank you. Okay. So on this note, Air More Tangled is still a thing, but I want to remind you guys that Air More Tangled is not about getting Disney to end the hiatus, because for goodness sakes, first of all, we just went on hiatus. It hasn't been that long. Like, chill.
Guys, we waited 5 years.
Right?
5 years. It's been 2 weeks. It has been 16 days. Please calm down.
But yeah, so
I love you, but please calm down.
it is still a thing, and it has never existed to get Disney to end the hiatus. What we want from Air More Tangled is to remind them to air reruns, which I guess now that they have officially going to be on Disney Plus, then like that counts as airing reruns. There'll be some place for them to like for people to see it. But if they actually aired reruns on television, more people would be like, hey, what's this show I never heard about, despite the fact that it's going into its last season. So we want them to air more reruns. We want to encourage them to like release a DVD or Blu-ray set when the series is over. Of course, that also goes back to Disney Plus. It's like if they do that, are they going to bother? So I mean, it's like
I mean, the whole thing with Disney Plus is they're getting rid of the Disney Vault, which is shocking.
Shocking. The Disney Vault has existed since I was a child. You know?
Like, you're gonna be able to watch every freaking Disney movie that they have ever made.
That's
which
my
is
question.
like, I'm like, Song of the South gonna be on there?
That's literally what everybody's saying. It's like every Disney movie. Are they going to have Song of the South on there? I mean, literally everyone's question. And also, like Iger said something along the lines, like I don't know how long ago this was, but Iger has said on multiple occasions that they are never going to release Song of the South.
That's staying in the vault and it's never coming out.
But you know, that is so irresponsible of them.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because that movie, like, from what I have heard and what I have seen, it is not the most racist of the old live-action Disney movies.
I'm gonna tell you guys something. I have seen Song of the South, and I've seen Song of the South as an adult, so it's not like I have vague childhood memories. And yeah, there is some, you know, a little bit cringy stuff in it, but honestly, a good hearty disclaimer at the front of the movie would get rid of that. I mean, it's like, we're like, we acknowledge that this is not okay, but we cannot deny that this happened, you know? So, I mean, and we also cannot deny that people in Hollywood, ourselves included, thought it was all right to portray this, you know? But that is obviously a topic that has nothing to do with Tangled at all, whatsoever. So yeah, so Air More Tangled. So keep adding Disney Channel on Twitter. Every time you see them talk about Tangled at all, bring up the series. Thank them for mentioning the series when they do. We want to do positive reinforcement as well as request the new stuff. When it comes to that kind of thing, we'll talk about this more next week probably, because next week we plan to go over the books, the Layla Howland books. But Kelsey has actually managed to contact her. And there is no third book.
I'm so sad. I can't even, like, that was the one thing I was looking forward to, the stupid hiatus, and it's gone. I'm so sad.
They've gone and they've pulled all the books. We recently discovered on Barnes & Noble that they plan to release Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, or Rapunzel's Tangled Tales books 1 through 4 in like a single compendium and also audiobooks. That's kind of cool. But at the same time, it's like you're going to re-release these instead of releasing new stuff. What the hell? So, yeah, so that's happening. So there's a new comic series, like, because every little section of 3 comics is a new comic series. So even though they're all the same series, but I don't know why they do it that way. But this one's called Tangled the Series Here and Now. And the first issue released on April 17th. And in that issue, we finally got to meet the artist of the wanted posters. So, I mean, I love it that the comic artists and writers, like, they don't consult the series writers, but I love that they, like, included this thing that people have actually been asking for almost 9 years, you know? Well, who drew those pictures and what is their issue, you know? Well, now we know. So if you can get a chance to look at that, you look at that because it's a lot of fun. That's very cool. And now we're going to get onto our actual topic of conversation this week. We're going to talk about the character relationship development throughout the entire series. So this is actually a really interesting thing because a lot of the series the whole thing is based on relationships. That has been the structure of the series the entire time, is how these characters relate to one another. And it's really great because it just shows it's way better than having like stagnant characters who maintain these same relationships for the entire thing. And that even includes characters like Rapunzel and Eugene. Their relationship has changed through the course of the series. But we're going to start at a less obvious direction. We're going to start looking at how Adira has related to the entire group for the entire series. So, obviously, you go back to her introduction, and her very first introduction was the last shot of The Secret of the Sun Drop. And she was just the mystery sword lady. I mean, that's what we called her as a fan. Like, mystery sword lady. We don't know what else to call her. So she's got this sword that can cut through black rocks. And I know that we were all like, oh my God, that's the sword that's going to cut Rapunzel's hair. No. So when we finally do meet her as an individual, first of all, she is failing to fight Cassandra, which I love. I mean, I love that she's very Tai Chi in that she just ducks and dodges out of the way, and she prefers to make people wear themselves out and trip themselves up than actually fight. But it starts off with this lack of faith in our characters, and she doesn't want to be touched. Like, it was really, you know, Cass puts her hand on her, and she's just like, yeah, stop that. And it was, you know, pretty curt right there. And you know, that's the sort of thing that you think is going to come up again. Like, it's got to come up again because, you know, they really kind of made a point of doing that. But she also is like, oh, man, I'd hate to see what happened if you guys are trying. Oh, you are trying. So this goes to show that she has, like, no faith in these characters.
She was my favorite in Beyond the Corona Walls. Like, that was my favorite Adira episode. She was so funny. She's so snarky.
She is so snarky. So we start out with this whole thing where she's like, okay, well, you're the sun drop. And like, also, so she starts Rapunzel, or she gives Rapunzel direction. Rapunzel's like, I'm going to follow these rocks because that's what I'm going to do. And Adira's like, oh, by the way, there's a reason you should be following the rocks. I mean, you're not just doing it blindly. I'll give you a little bit of insight as to what's coming, sort of. So, you know, she starts off the whole thing where she's more enigmatic than anything else. She doesn't like to be touched. She's come and go so fast, like here one moment, gone the next. Lance sees her in a delusional haze as he's coming out of being poisoned, and he's instantly in love with his angel, you know. In fact, as I recall, he referred to her as a goddess.
Yeah.
And Cass just agrees with him, you know. I'm sorry, was there a goddess here a moment ago? Yeah, there was. You know, so she's, and you know, she does the thing where she like steals the top of the cake and walks off eating it, and so it's like, so her relationship. Oh, also how she like gleefully frees Eugene from the ropes and like gives him no indication that she's here to help.
I love his face there.
I'm with the good guys.
Oh my gosh. All of that stuff is so fun to watch in hindsight, now knowing that, you know, he's the Dark Prince. I'm like,
yes, it's very funny. And it's also, it was
status
like...
report, guys, on Ellie. I'm still reeling from Dark Prince Eugene. I can no longer listen to Zachary Levi sing. It makes me cry all the time. Literally, anytime Eugene sings, I'm just like, Dark Prince, I can't handle it. Like, listening to I See the Light, nope, not possible. Impossible. Every line he sings, I just am like, oh, God, he's the Dark Prince. So, yeah, that's how I'm doing.
So she's coping.
Yep. I'm doing great. I'm doing just fine.
So the next time we see Adira, as I recall, is in Force of No Return. And so that was really interesting because she got some one-on-one with Eugene. And this is where we discover that she's got her thing about nicknames, where she's like, I'm not going to take the time to bother to remember your name. She calls Rapunzel by her name, and that's probably because she's a princess, she respects her. But right?
Oh my God!
Which is further proof that she did not know that Eugene was the Dark.
I know. That was one of the things that was getting me when I was theorizing. I'm like, but Adira doesn't seem to notice. So like, wouldn't she have noticed, or does she know and she's just not saying anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because
she just didn't know.
Didn't know. Like, dude, yeah, okay.
Right.
So you have all of her. No, it's fine.
Keep going off track.
You have all of her antagonism with Eugene there, where Eugene just wants to he wants to prove himself to the group. And she's like, by the way, you're the glue, which is really funny if you think about it. Because she's like, by the way, you're the glue. And then, like, at the end of the season, he's like, oh, so I'm going to keep you from reaching your destiny now. Me, the glue, I'm going to keep you from doing this. So she has her little moment with Eugene where he kind of, I wouldn't say that she grows on him, but she grows on him. But that's an odd, interesting little moment because that's when Cassandra says, hey, I'm starting to like her. And we're like, now we're aware that Cassandra only likes Adira when Adira is antagonizing Eugene. I mean, this is like literally just their brother-sister relationship all over again. If the only reason she liked Adira is because Adira was picking on Eugene. We get more of Lance's head over heels news. In fact, Lance's relationship with Adira has changed the least. Not Adira's relationship with Lance, but Lance's relationship with Adira has changed the least. Because he was like infatuation at first sight, and that just kept going through the whole rest of the season. So you have, Cass's little thing about, oh, I'm starting to like her, but obviously that's not really the case because every single other time she sees her, she's like, and Eugene's all like, okay, well, she helped get me through here. She helped the group get through this forest. So I guess, and Rapunzel trusts her, so I guess I'll trust her whether I like it or not. But then, he's just fine because he's Eugene and he's adaptable. Yep. And her relationship with Rapunzel is interesting because with Rapunzel, you can see her respect and faith in Rapunzel growing as the season goes on. Like every subsequent time she sees them, she's being more open. She's being a little bit more forthright about things. She's, just letting things happen that she wouldn't normally let happen. In Great Tree, we find out a plausible reason why she doesn't like to be touched, and that would be because Hector manhandled her a lot, and she's just like, get off. But by the time we reach Destiny's Collide, Rapunzel straight up lassos her with her hair, where in Beyond the Corona Walls, when Rapunzel, grabbed her with her hair, she tried to cut her hair. And sure, it didn't break the sword and it didn't break Rapunzel's hair, but when Rapunzel lassos her in Destiny's Collide, she was sort of like, okay, well, this is to be expected. And she's chill about it. She's like, okay, with this group of people, she now lets these people touch her. She has started referring to more people by their real names. Like, she calls Lance Lance in Destiny's Collide. So it's like, that's awesome.
Yes.
And Destiny's Collide, not only does she run around and catch Pascal, but then Pascal sits on her shoulder, which is a huge indication of things because Pascal sits on the shoulders of friends. And this has always been the case with Pascal. Because, when Lance first showed up, Pascal was never anywhere near him. And then by the time you get to the Way of the Willow, now he's hanging out in his room, sitting on his shoulder, which, by the way, I guess Lance literally does live in the castle. He's just got this room that...
It's got plenty of rooms. Why not share?
It does have a lot of bedrooms. And they're like, okay, well, my friend is homeless. Can he live with us? And they're like, sure. Why not? Another thief in the castle. That sounds awesome.
It's fine.
So we've got all these new people, and Fred and Ariana are just going to be like, whatever. I don't care.
Our daughter's home. This is fine. So Adira, her relationship with everybody. And then, of course, she gets her little, Lance, gets her out of the way of the ghost swing. And first she yells at him, and then she immediately thanks him and smiles. And Beth had an interesting observation regarding that, where in Rapunzel and the Great Tree, when he was sucking up to her and he was pretending that, he's the one who saved them from Hector in the first place. And he's all like, you don't have to thank me, but you can if you want. And she completely ignores him and blows him off. But then in Destiny's Collide, when he actually deserved it, she actually thanked him. So that just goes to show that she was listening to him and not completely blowing him off. But yeah, so I mean, the fact that she gave him that little cute look that Tom loves, and so I love it even more because Tom loves it. It's we have no idea how Lance and Adira are going from here on out. But that's oh, well, that's shipping fodder right there. This isn't necessarily a one-sided relationship anymore. So that's freaking adorable.
I ship it. I'm here for it. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
dude, they're cute.
I agree.
They happen. They're adorable. The fact that she's like twice his age means nothing. It's
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, so Adira, I mean, we've watched her relationship with the group, and also, you know, she spends this entire season being mysterious, and we're not sure we can trust her, and all this kind of fun stuff. But then she straight up goes against Edmund to his face for them.
Mhm.
Like, she goes up to bat in their defense. And it's like, okay, this is the king that she has sworn to serve, and now she's like, dude, you have to shut up and listen, you know? So, yeah, so Adira's on our side. Another observation Beth had, because obviously Adira's her baby, but another observation Beth had regarding Adira is that the instant Hector accuses her of having a fool's dream, he has now saddled her with the word dream. And if we all know Rapunzel, which we all do, having a dream makes you a good guy. That's just how this world works, you know? So since she's got this fool's dream, all of a sudden she's like solidly protagonist. It's like we don't have to worry about her anymore because she's got a dream. So yeah, so that's how Adira has related to basically the crew throughout the entire season 2. She's been a fun watch. I mean, it's a little hit or miss there at first. You're not sure, you know, where she's going to come in, when she's going to come in, what she's going to do. Let's show up randomly at the end of this episode because you have another scroll piece, you know, that kind of stuff. So, and also apparently when you listen to the way that Rapunzel talked about the Great Tree, Adira has spent time with them off camera, like in moments we haven't seen. So they have had more time to build the relationship than it appears that they have had, because she does apparently show up more times than we have been witness to. Because, you know, what Rapunzel says in Great Tree is, well, she's talking about the tree and saying, well, Adira told us that, you know, but she did not ever tell us that while the audience was watching. And that's how we know that she has been there when we weren't there. So up next is going to be Cassandra and Lance. And, you know, you start out in The Return of Strongbow, and you look, there's this cut scene that Tom posted the boards for, which I love the motion in these boards so much that I really, really wish this could have been kept in. It's when they're walking back from the barrens, actually from the forest, you know, it's all 4 of them, and Rapunzel's admiring her new ring and all that stuff. But Lance is apparently very animatedly talking to Cassandra, and Cass is stone-faced, staring straight ahead, seeming to not pay any attention to him whatsoever. And she spends all this time in that episode just accusing him constantly of being up to no good. And granted, she was right, but she still spends all this time doing that she will not have any trust or faith in this guy, like, simply because he was friends of Eugene's from when Eugene was still a thief. And she's like, well, then I don't have any reason to trust you. And again, she wasn't wrong. I mean, Rapunzel's faith is adorable, but Cassandra was right. So we start out with that. And then we don't really see them interact again much until we get to Painter's Block. And in Painter's Block, they're all hanging out in Rapunzel's room when Rapunzel's trying to paint and can't get any inspiration and whatnot. And Cass is sitting there in that chair eating the cupcake, and Lance is sitting on the arm of the chair. And, like, so they're in really close proximity, and this doesn't seem to bother either of them. They're like, you know, Lance insinuates himself on people all the time anyway. But it's not until we get into Keeper of the Spire.
I think I've only watched that episode like 3 times. Like,
see, the funny thing is that the first time I saw that episode, I was like, oh, this is so annoying. But now I'm like, no, it's actually very endearing. I actually really like it.
I think I've seen Keeper of the Spire twice and Freebird once. And it was so funny because, speaking of Freebird, sorry to get off topic, everyone was like, oh, there's a new section in what?
View from up here.
View from up here. And I was like,
There
is
is.
there?
The second verse. Yeah.
I guess I'll have to take your word for it. Is there really? Like, oh my god. I don't know.
I was listening to that for the first time and I didn't know that. And I'm like, wait, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard the song way more times than I've watched the episode. That is absolutely true. So in Keeper of the Spire, that is the moment where Cassandra first refers to Lance as her friend, to which he responds, wait, we're friends? So, like, he didn't know up to this point that there was any friendship between them.
That is
Lance
cute. I love that.
Yes. So Lance is a sweet and easygoing guy, and he is perfectly willing to allow himself to be other people's friends, but kind of like Eugene, he requires them to feel it before he'll feel it. So, like, if Cass had given any indication that she considered him a friend, he would have been more friendly starting at that moment, you know? But it wasn't until Keeper of the Spire when she straight up calls him her friend and he responds confusedly, wait, we're friends, you know? And all things considered, it's not like the two of them have had many conversations in the series. It's like, despite being on screen at the same time many, many times, they don't talk to each other very often. Which reminds me of what I had said previously about how I like that Rapunzel and Eugene have friends outside of each other, and they are friends with each other's friends. But I guess each other's friends have difficulty being friends with each other. You know, trust
It's
me,
very complicated.
So you know, she refers to him as her friend, and then you kind of see the warming up happen from there. In Happiness is she's actually watching with, you know, sweet amusement while he's dancing like a total lunatic, and you know, that's really cute right there. Yeah, just these really sweet, soft moments where, you know, you see them gradually getting closer. In Rapunzel and the Great Tree, when Rapunzel yells at Cassandra looks at Lance and Eugene for backup after she's so shocked. And it's like, if she didn't consider Lance her friend at this point, she wouldn't have asked him for backup, you know? So, you know, you're just watching it gradually advance, and, you know, you have their another moment of actual conversation in Destiny's Collide when they're pulling the trolley across the rail, you know, and have a conversation about destiny. And it's just, it's interesting because there's so much going on behind the scenes that we don't get to see, that all of the little, and I mean behind the scenes with the characters, not making the show. Because in this case, it's like, obviously their friendship has grown since his introduction, you know. But it starts out that, I mean, he was so antagonistic in Return of Strongbow, but I mean, comically antagonistic, but he was so antagonistic in Return of Strongbow, and he wasn't much better in Pascal's Story. In fact, he was exactly worse in Pascal's Story, because this time he's stealing from people we like.
Oh, Lance.
Oh, Lance. But yeah, no, Lance is still one of my all-time favorite characters. Definitely of the new characters from the show, Lance is definitely my favorite new character. So
I'm hoping he gets a bigger role now in season 3.
Well, okay. The only thought I have on that is, looking through stuff that we do know, he is in the group number.
Yeah.
So, like, he is kind of filling in those main character shoes now that he's had that chance to shine. I really do feel like we're going to be getting a little bit more of Lance, which, yay.
Yes.
Yay.
I'm very happy at the idea of getting more Lance, because he's so wonderful. So, speaking of Cassandra, her relationship with Eugene has been, you know, it's really interesting, because a lot of the fans did not pick up on the fact that they were getting friendly toward each other. Like, I cannot tell you that even as late as, like, Rapunzel and the Great Tree, I've had people like, well, since Cassandra and Eugene hate each other, and I'm like, guys, that's old news. They don't hate each other anymore, you know? But you start out in Tangled Before Ever After, and I will never forget the first time I read that book, how it was like, oh, Cassandra and Eugene were really good friends. And I'm like, they don't seem like really good friends. That absolutely has to be Rapunzel's point of view and her wishful thinking, because they don't in any way, shape, or form seem like good friends in this show. So it starts out, you know, where she won't do anything but be on his case just for being in love with Rapunzel, you know? So, like, the whole thing about, like, look, I know you don't like me for Rapunzel. Oh, that's not true. I don't like you for anyone, you know? So they throw barbs at each other right from the get-go, and he's constantly calling her Ice Queen. And notice he has not compared her to Ice in a very long time. Like,
Yeah.
He can now if he wants to, and I'll back him up. Oh, excuse me. I'm still a little bitter. Still a little damaged.
Like, I think he literally has not used an ice analogy since the Quest for Varian.
Yeah.
And that was when he referred her to a reptile, basically, you know, saying that she was cold-blooded. But so you start out with this whole thing where it's very clearly antagonistic, and they actually have a couple episodes that focus on them being antagonistic towards each other. So you've got Cassandra v. Eugene, where they're fighting so much that Rapunzel locks them in a cell so they can work together and work their way out. You've got, you know, and then you've got like Fitzherbert PI, which is the third episode. Guys, Fitzherbert PI is the third episode.
Oh my god.
Like, that blows my freaking mind.
Right? I know. I started watching this series with one of my friends who lives down the street from me, and I was like, oh my god, Fitzherbert PI was this early on?
Right.
Jeez.
It was so early. Like, I remember when that was like the next episode, I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited. This series is getting so good. And now I'm like, dude,
now it hurts.
Episode 3. Holy crap. I mean, but you look at, like, in Rapunzel's Enemy, you look at them with the whole Gregorio thing, you know, and Gregorio. Oh my god, that was so long ago.
Back when it used to be happy and funny and it didn't hurt.
Right? Yeah. When everything was tangled and nothing hurts, and now everything is tangled and everything hurts. But yeah, so you look at that, and they're like fighting. First of all, they're fighting about, you know, whether or not he's, you know, got a real job, sort of thing. Well, that's Herbert P. I'm thinking about again, but in yeah, I mean, so it's like, so he's sitting here and he's like sort of helping her with Gregorio, more like he's standing around and like antagonizing her while she's trying to like get this gopher ready, which, by the way, I'd like to point out that as early as episode 1, Cassandra was all about doing things that would make her stand out. Because she was so proud of being in charge of the gopher, because it was a prestigious position. She has always been all about standing out and you know, getting the glory. And it's like interesting to realize that all the way back as early as episode 1, she's like, look, it's a hallowed tradition.
And then Eugene eats all his food.
And then Eugene eats all his food. And then she advances, he goes gets more food.
Want to go halfsies?
Want to go halfsies?
So good!
He has so many great lines.
Like, I swear I am going to do that project where I'm going to go through every single episode and find my favorite line of his in every episode that he's in, which is there's only one episode he's not in. So I will find my favorite line of his in every episode he's in, and I will post it as a quote.
Yes.
There are going to be some hard ones. You're going to have to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make some sacrifices.
I am. And when I do that, I don't want any lip from anybody. They need to understand that sacrifices were made in order for this to be my favorite line. And, you know, it's not always going to be the one that makes me laugh the hardest. Sometimes it's going to be the one that makes me cry the hardest. So. But yeah, so you know, then the whole thing about like the argument about Dimberry versus Bimberry, and I just Bimberry. And then you have in What the Hair, you've still got it going on that she's like getting on his case for basically existing, you know, trying to like get him to break his promise to keep a secret, you know. So it's just, I mean, it started out, it really was very hard for me to like Cassandra at first because I love Eugene so much, and she was clearly anti-Eugene, and I'm all like, babe, you gotta chill. I mean, I know I'm supposed to like you, and it's just not happening because of the way you're acting. But then we hit Fitzherbert PI, and despite not liking Eugene, that was when she showed her colors of fair was more important than personal preference.
Yep.
And so this is the first indication that we get that they could conceivably be friends at some point in this series, because she took his side against her dad because he was right, you know. And it's like, well, you know, okay, maybe I don't hate you completely.
Completely.
I mean, but then like Challenge of the Brave happened and that like knocked her back down a bit. But and then you've got Cassandra v. Eugene, where they actually have their first heart-to-heart. Like, this is the first time, you can tell, like, even canonically in the series, this is the first time they've ever actually just sat there and talked to each other about anything. And, you know, she closes herself out, which, you know, being all pro-Eugene, I was all, at first. But then people said, you know what, she's got every right to not tell him. And I'm like, you know what, you're right. She has every right to not tell him if she doesn't want to. She's actually pretty polite about it, too, you know, all things considered. So, I mean, so we got that indication. And then at the end of that one, she fixes the vase, so that he won't get in trouble with Frederick. And so we're like, okay, so now we're actually starting to reach a little bit of common ground, and they're able to work together, and we can now see. And this is not, you know, there's brigands attacking the kingdom work together. This is like just to keep each other out of trouble, work together. Because, you know, it was all going to work out. I mean, with the stabbing tins, and they were going to like kill Eugene, and they were going to, you know, use Cassandra as ransom. And it's just, yeah. So, I mean, this is our first little indication that they have any chance of getting along ever. And from here on, it starts to warm up bit by bit. And you're starting to notice that the barbs that they throw each other are taken with better humor. It was not until The Alchemist Returns that I was really positive that they were actually friends now, like genuinely friends. And I was sure about it because when he called her cold-blooded, she laughed it off. And she said, I walked that one. And I'm like, okay, they're friends, officially, the end right here. This is the official beginning of their friendship, as far as I'm concerned. Because they now can take insults with humor instead of glaring and wanting to hit each other and other sibling-type things.
That's the one where he defends her when she gets thrown across the room and he rolls his sleeves up.
Exactly.
Love that part.
Wrong girl. Nobody gets to treat her that way but me. That is like the penultimate Big Brother line, is no one gets to treat them like. So yeah, that's like, so that was when I was like dang positive that they were friends and that this was actually getting on good. And then you have like, you know, Next Stop Anywhere, where they're like all singing together, and you know, not as much as Destinies Collide, but still they were all singing together in that one. And you just, you know,
we can't talk about that song. You cry. Either of them. We can't talk about either of them, but mostly Next Stop Anywhere. I mean, both of them make me cry, but for different reasons.
Right. But also because, you know, Eugene is singing, that makes you cry.
That song is really sad to listen to now. You're like, God.
I can't listen to Next Stop Anywhere because he sings that freaking line that I was like, Eugene, why do you want to go where you're meant to be when where you think you're meant to be is with Rapunzel? That doesn't make any sense. This logically makes no sense because you're leaving the kingdom, which is where you would be marrying her. So why are you singing that? And it just, you know what? I was right, and I still can't really get over that fact. Okay.
Honestly, Elsie, I like that you admit that maybe not all of your clues were actual clues.
Yeah.
You were right anyway, so it doesn't matter if they were actual clues or not. So then you get, you know, farther along in the series, like I mentioned before with, you know, the Great Tree, how she looks to Eugene for backup when Rapunzel yells at her. But then in Destinies Collide, he straight up says he loves her like a sister. Like, Eugene has said he loves more people in this series than I think anybody else. Like, Rapunzel has said that she loves, like, she said she loves Eugene, she said she loves Cassandra, she said she loves her parents. Okay, Rapunzel still wins, and Pascal and all that stuff. But Eugene is like this dude who was alone. He tells Lance he loves him. He tells Cassandra, well, he tells Rapunzel he loves Cassandra, you know? So, like, dang, the fact that it got to the point where he acknowledged that level of relationship, I'm just like, oh my God, it's true.
I'm so proud of him.
He has a family. Oh, goodness gracious.
And now he has a...
Okay, but may I also point out now that not only did he say that he loves her like a sister, but now she's betrayed him too.
Oh, no! Not my baby boy!
Like, everybody, I mean, mean, with good reason, people are focusing on Rapunzel being betrayed here, but Eugene's also been betrayed here, you know? Eugene, who just spent this episode going through the emotional ringer, and now one of his best friends has appeared to have completely betrayed them. I mean, I don't want the series to end, but I'm also dying to see how the episode starts.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm like, okay, so obviously this is going to pick up exactly where it left off. But I mean, Eugene is not doing too hot either in this whole cast turning thing.
Also, he not only has he been betrayed by her, but what is his freaking destiny given to him by his birthright? To destroy the Moonstone. So now, like, great, I have to kill Cass. Damn it!
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Right? So, like,
I don't think he's actually going to do that.
Neither do I.
I just want to bring that.
I don't think she's gonna die. I don't. Like, she's too much of a main character. Like, she is the other main character, you know? So I don't think they're gonna kill Cass. I don't even think she's going to be a villain for that long. Like, maybe until the mid-season tops, maybe. Like, I just, okay, anyway. That's a conversation for another time. So now that we're on Eugene, we're going to circle back around and talk about Lance and Eugene's relationship. So,
Buddy.
aren't you gonna cry? That's
Lance is the Dark Prince by proxy.
Oh
so
my God.
we know about their past from what they have said, and like I still hope that we get an episode that actually shows their past. Like, I feel like we will, because I still feel like we've sort of been told we're going to get it. Like, not in so many words, but we've had hints dropped that we're going to actually get it. So
I think Disney thinks that we have gotten all we need. We're like, oh yes, here's a little Lance. And here's baby Eugene. And I'm like, no.
No.
I want to see them as children together.
Yes.
7-year-olds together. That's what we need.
Please.
Not that little potato baby. It was great. That's fine. But let's grow him up a little bit.
Yep. I need to hear little Eugene talk.
Oh my goodness.
But like,
Or
again,
I will have some words.
Again, we know that they hired the boys from This Is Us to play roles on Tangled other than just the little boys in Corona, because they said so.
Yeah.
They said as much that they had more plans for these boys.
Playing little Lance. Was it that kid?
No, it was a different kid. He was adorable.
It was a younger kid. So I anticipate that we're going to be getting them maybe just on the cusp of their criminal lives.
Yeah.
Like, because clearly Eugene.
Can we see Eugene get the knife?
I was gonna say that was exactly it. That Eugene got that knife. Eugene got that knife 12 years ago, right?
Yeah.
15.
So if he's
It was 15 years ago. He was 10.
he was 10.
He was 10.
So little Lance was like 4. That was like a 4-year-old way to behave, 4 or 5. So that means that they still have like 5 good years to put them around Angry and Red's age.
Yeah.
And so that's when I anticipate seeing them as these dorky little kids who think they're master thieves, even though they've just started. That's what I'm hoping for.
I will not be able to handle that. Potato baby was a lot, but that would be just too much.
Dude, this is that one like that guy who's like Eugene's wanted posters of like drawing movie style versions of Eugene with those various styles at various ages, like growing into that grin of his. I'm like, oh my God, stop, you're killing me. I love them.
I'm gonna cry if I see little kid Eugene. I am going to just go full corpse if I see teenage Eugene.
Oh my God.
And his little spots and his ponytail. Like, oh my God.
I want to point out, I'd love to point out
so
that like for years now, we've been getting like posts on Tumblr about here's Hiccup at like all the ages we've seen him in. I'm like, oh my God, we can start doing that with Eugene. Right now we have to like fill in with like wanted posters on them.
We're doing our best. We use what we have.
But yeah, so I really do think that we're going to get to see their actual past. But we know that in the past they were very close, and they have considered each other brothers for a very long time. That they're, you know, the only one that each other had for however long. And honestly, as much of a loner as Eugene has been, and even his solo talks about him being a loner and being alone, it makes you wonder how long he and Lance had gone separate ways, you know, before he met Rapunzel. Because clearly it hasn't even been like a year or two. It has to be more like 5 years or something. Like maybe, who knows, maybe that big haul that that Anthony the Weasel took the treasure from them, maybe that was the last big heist they did together, you know?
Yeah.
And that was 8 years ago. So, yeah, so who knows? So, you know, they were, you know, partners in crime and best friends and brothers. And when Lance returns, like, Eugene still wants to be his friend, but he has changed so much and he knows Lance hasn't changed at all. So he's just, like, done with his shit. Like, he's just done. And he wants things to be okay, and he knows Lance, and he knows that they're not, and he's watching Lance steal things right from under everybody's nose, so he's putting them back for him and stuff like that. And so, I mean, you see him get so frustrated with him in this episode, and he's at the end of the episode, he's basically ready to disown him. He's just like, you know, no, we're not doing this. And then Lance like comes clean and apologizes, and Eugene calms down. Because Lance has now surprised him and been like, no, he has the capability of changing. This is not what I expected. And so while they are still as close as brothers and best friends and whatnot, we get to see Eugene, who has now grown into a little bit of refinement and is also constantly in a state of trying to make a good impression, be embarrassed by him. Because Lance doesn't care, and Eugene cares very, very much. And so, I mean, and you see, honestly, with The Way of the Willow, one of the best things in The Way of the Willow is actually the B-plot of the guys camping out. It was, like, unexpectedly delightful. And, you know, and then you also get Pascal on Frederick's shoulder there, you know, so this is more of Pascal being the key that binds people together, being like, oh, if Pascal accepts you and sits on your shoulder, then you're in, you know. So that's the episode where he sits on Lance's shoulder for the first time that we see. And so... yeah, so Eugene and Lance, they've also always had a very sibling-y type relationship, but this is now the older brother who's got the annoying younger brother, and the annoying younger brother doesn't care how annoying he is, and the older brother's trying to make a good impression on his girlfriend's parents, you know? Basic everyday stuff. But you get to be on the Corona walls. Oh, and also, I'm going to back up a second. You get to Secret of the Sundrop, where... no, Queen for a Day. I'm going to back up to Queen for a Day. Lance had no reason to go with Eugene other than that this mattered to Eugene. And that's actually really big. You know, it's like he follows Eugene and the other pubs like that to the pass. He acknowledges that, you know, the king and queen gave him a second chance when they didn't really have any reason to, other than Eugene's word. So, I mean, that's fantastic. You get Big Brothers of Corona, where we get a little bit of insight into their past, and where you get to see, you know, what Lance is like as, you know, a fun uncle. I wouldn't really call him dad material at this point, but he is a fun uncle material. But I mean, you get a lot of that, the sweet caring between them, because when Red falls asleep on Lance and Jean goes to wake him up, he's just really gentle about it.
It's so cute.
It's so cute.
Ugh.
It hurts my heart.
That episode still makes me cry.
Everything in this show hurts my heart.
We didn't ask for this. I'm just kidding. Yes, we did. But
yeah.
So, I mean, so you watch their relationship is pretty standard. And then you get to Beyond the Corona Walls, where, like, Eugene straight up tells Lance he loves him. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that is the most progressive thing I've seen in Disney in a long time.
I'm so proud.
I am too. That they actively, you know, let Eugene say that to him. And there's nothing no homo about it. You know, it's just, no, I love you. And I'm going to do what it takes to save you. And it's just like, ah. And then they have a duet, which is like one of the best songs in season 2.
That's the only song right now that doesn't make me cry. And I just love how how goofy they sounded that. I'm sorry I called you dishonest, Lance. Like, oh, Zach, thank you. I love him.
I think my favorite line might be, I'll lend an ear. Oh, you meant literally.
I was like, of course their duet is them professing their bro love to each other. Like, it's just, it's
They're
perfect.
completely high bro love. It's like, it's exactly what I wanted.
Yep.
Like, seriously, it's more than I wanted. That song is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that James finally got to sing in the show.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm so,
Him.
I mean, and
Solo.
their voices blend.
Solo.
Yes.
And their voices blend so well. Like, they have completely unique kinds of voices, and they just sound so good together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I've recently started calling Zachary Levi's voice Butter, because Butter is, like, smooth, and it's mellow, and it makes everything blend together easier. So, like, that's what his voice is like. It's Butter. But yeah, so you get this, and this is like, this takes place right after Eugene is actually very honest with Lance about, like, dude, you're not going to get Adira being the way you're being, It's like, he is the first guy to know that love changes you, but that you have to be willing to change for love. So, like, just, dude, you're not honest enough for Adira. I mean, assuming Adira's even into guys, you're not honest enough for Adira. So yeah, so that's fantastic. And then Lance gets his great moment, and you finally got adopted is like the best line in that episode.
He's so excited.
He's just so excited for Eugene. They've been through this entire ride together since childhood, and Lance knows how badly Eugene wanted to be adopted, and just like, he's so happy for him. It's ridiculous.
I swear, if we don't get a part where, like, after they've all had a minute to breathe, and Eugene has a moment to be like, hey, Edmund, what the frick? Like, what the, and he accepts him as his dad. He's like, okay, but Lance,
me and Lance are a package deal.
You are adopting him. I could be your, I'll be your prince, but he's a prince too. Like, you can't adopt him. Thank you. Okay, goodbye.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
And Lance gets adopted. That actually reminds me of, like, this one picture of, like, it was like a guy who his stepdad had been in his life almost his entire life and had always been a really great guy, and he called him dad and all that stuff. But then, like, when he was in his 20s, the man officially adopted him. And so it was this adorable picture of him, like, jumping into his arms and all this adorable crowd. I want to see Lance do that to Edmund.
Yes.
Jump into his arms and be like, Dad!
Oh.
Of course, if he does that, then we'll lose the opportunity for him to call him Mr. Eugene's dad. Or King Eugene's dad. Or
Eugene's dad.
like, so yeah, I am actually really, really looking forward to how that particular relationship progresses.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, I'm gonna cry so hard. Oh, God.
It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be amazing.
It's gonna be so good.
So now here is the, not the big kicker, but like the season 1 big kicker, Rapunzel and Varian's relationship with each other. So, the whole fandom knows what their relationship is like, but the whole fandom also does not agree on what their relationship is like. At this point, I can say that Rapunzel is open to forgiving him because she doesn't fear him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important. But going back to the beginning, it's interesting how their relationship actually started with fear in the first place, if you think about it, because approaching his house, she was not sure about this, Oh, well, this is homey, and I kind of wish I said goodbye to my loved ones kind of way. So, it comes in and he's, in his ventilator and is talking weird. He's like, oh, who are you? And I do not work with magic, and I am Varian, and all that fun stuff. But then as soon as he takes
I came here about my hair. I love that. I love when he's doing his Rapunzel impression. It's so cute.
It's really cute. But so he removes the ventilator, and he's really, like, ridiculously respectful to her at first. Like, if you notice, in Corona, people are respectful to Rapunzel, but you don't get a lot in the way of like bows and curtsies. In fact, you have one person in particular who thinks it's okay to straight up boo her to her face. But Varian, sure, he was already on his knees because he was, getting rid of the purple goo, but he stayed there and he like bowed to her, like in a way that no one else has. So already this is kind of weird. Or, unique. It's like people don't treat her with that much respect. And then he's so delighted by the fact that she's like, just call me Rapunzel, that he like enunciates it, okay, Rapunzel, and he does it like that way, like every time he remembers to use her name.
I just watched What the Hair again, and it was so good. I was like, man,
so good.
It's a good episode.
I really like, I know I don't miss Varian as much as some of you guys, but like I do miss him. I miss the Tangle boy.
Yeah, I'm at the point now where I'm just like, yeah, I want to see my little boy. Here it comes.
Here it comes. Oh my god.
That's the point I'm at right now with Varian.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and knowing that he's going to be in season 3, because guys, Varian, like, for sure is in season 3. If you look down at the bottom of our commentary stuff, we're going to have links to all of this stuff that we're talking about that we've got proof to, such as Zachary Levi's 2016 interview where he says how long the series is, links to proof that Varian is going to be in the series, and we even have, like, Crew has said it on the Discord, which we don't have links to, but we even had multiple crew members multiple times say that he is going to be in season 3 on the Discord.
And we know for a fact because of Instagram that he is part of the big, right?
Yes.
He's part of the big
The ladder song.
The ladder song.
If you don't know it, guys, the reason why it's called the ladder song is because there's this one photo of like a recording booth, and Chris is like, guess what we're setting up here? And we're like, there's a ladder in the booth, and we're like, a ladder is singing? What's going on? We don't understand. So this is why it's called the ladder song.
Who's gonna stand on the ladder and just be like, yes?
It's Bird Varian.
Yes!
So Varian is part of that big group number, that same one that I was talking about earlier with Lance. So we're gonna have links to proof to all of this stuff. We're not just pulling this out of thin air. This is stuff that's definitely happening. So Rapunzel and Varian, they start out with this really formal relationship where he is, bowing to her and calling her princess, and she insists on being called Rapunzel, and he's delighted that she's letting him call her by her first name. But then, it promptly gets more casual as he conducts a series of tests on her, each more devastating than the last. But, so this is how we start their relationship off. And we move on to, the Great Expectations, where they don't actually have a lot of interaction, the two of them, in that episode, but what interaction they have is friendly, and she's like happy to see him, and he's kind of like still shy that she is acknowledging his presence, so, but he's warming up to the idea that she's genuinely his friend. And at the end of the episode, when she basically translates science speak so that everybody else understands what it is Varian wants, I always love that moment because I was like, look how smart she is, she's so smart. But yeah, so he knows that they're working together and they are a team. And at the end of that episode, he takes her and Cassandra to see, the rocks that are on this side of the wall, which this is the first that Rapunzel has heard about rocks being on this side of the wall. So she basically swears him into the Black Rock Club of the, we're not supposed to talk about this, but we're going to figure this out together. And then, comes Queen for a Day, which is like, ouch. Queen for a Day, which is like the most, it is the most unexpected turn in the series. It really is. Because it's like, even with Cassandra, we had warning that someone was going to betray her. And so we've been speculating for weeks. So,
and then we all thought we were in the clear during that episode. We were like, oh, it's Eugene. Of course it's Eugene. We knew it was going to be Eugene. And then it was Cassandra. We were like, what the frick?
Here's the thing with it being Cass, is that it wasn't that her betraying Rapunzel was surprising. It was the means by which she did it that was so surprising. Like it could have been anything, but we didn't expect her to grab the moonstone, So yeah, so then we have our great big turn of season 1, which this was like, we had heard this song that Varian sings in August of 2017 at D23 Expo. They played it at the Tangled panel. And so we all knew this song existed. We had heard like the recording of it. We were all really excited that Varian was getting this solo, and he gets this solo, and it's great and huge and inspirational, and it's promptly followed by his return to the castle, at which point, you know, he gets thrown out by the guards and all that stuff, and Rapunzel's unable to help him because she's in the middle of crisis, and this is where the fandom starts dividing. But, I mean, it's so at this point, their relationship is strained, to say the least. I know that a lot of people are extremely frustrated that Rapunzel never went to go check up on him. And while I agree that it is entirely within her character to have gone and checked up on him, it wasn't what needed to happen in order for the story to happen the way it happened. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I understand where everybody's coming from. I really do. But we can what if for as long as we like. But the fact of the matter is, if she had checked up on him, then things would have probably gone differently. And they needed to go the way that they went. The next time we see Varian, he and Rapunzel are not actually interacting, but we can now see that he is like totally rocking out the emo sinister thing. Because he's all like, potion that I don't know what it does. I'm like, that was an awfully evil way to look at a potion that you don't know what it does. But yeah, so I mean, so we've got the end of Queen for a Day where all of a sudden he's swearing his vengeance on everybody who's ever stood in his way. And that was like the what the hell moment. Cinnamon roll has now burned in the oven.
Oh, Varian.
And so then we get, Alchemist Returns the Quest for Varian, where the audience is a little bit confused because the last time we saw Varian, he was like, ha ha ha, evil potion. And then he's like, by the way, Rapunzel, I need your help. And she's like, okay, I'll go help him. Mm-hmm. And we're like, see, she'd help him if given the opportunity. Stuff came up. And, for all the people who were like, she shouldn't have gone to a paint class, like, don't even talk to me.
We're not getting into that one.
We're not getting into that one, yeah. I mean, that's a hot button issue with me, and I will get mad. So it's a little bit confusing that he entrusted her with the scroll, that he's like, oh, I need you to do this thing for me. Do me a solid, princess. But at this point, we now know that basically the purpose of him entrusting her with that was to get her guard down so she would trust him when he showed up again. We don't know where he was when she went to the lab. Clearly there was dust and crud everywhere, so who knows where he was baking those cookies at, because it weren't in his lab. So when he shows up again, is at the point where he's asking her for help and she's willing to help him, but like she hugs him and he doesn't hug her back, and he keeps in small ways slipping up that he intends to do this for his dad and not for Corona. And she's just like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, don't worry, I'm looking out for Corona too. She's like, oh, okay, because she's Rapunzel and she trusts people. Mm-hmm. And so then at the very end, it's not his actual betrayal with the flower that's so surprising because the audience all knows it's coming, but it's the fact that he to her face is all like, I used you. Mm-hmm. Look, you stupid princess, I used you. So we're now at a moment of complete distrust because he pulls this on her. She's like, she utters the infamous phrase, I don't even know what he is. And I mean, the reference was she can't call him a friend. She's not sure if she can call him an enemy. She doesn't know what's going on with Varian. And so then we get, Secret of the Sun Drop, where he is 100% antagonistic at this point. 100%, not even faking anything anymore. He's turning Rudiger into a monster in order to fight her. He's kidnapping her mom. He's literally threatening her mother's life.
Hey, Varian, we don't need another dead mom in this series.
Yeah, we haven't. Thanks so much.
Couldn't you have taken Fred for once? Come on.
Come on, Varian.
An eye for an eye. She didn't really take your dad, but
She did. You feel like she did.
Yeah,
You feel like she
feel
did,
like
yeah.
she did. So why didn't you take her dad? And then we would have gotten to see Ariana kicking butt.
Oh my god.
I mean, she did get to kick butt for a little bit with
like
the
2
sword,
seconds.
but
Yeah.
like 2 seconds.
Yeah, 2 seconds. How awesome would it have been if Rapunzel and here's the problem is that if that had happened, Ariana never would have agreed to it. She would have been, no, there's a much more diplomatic way to do this. We don't have to go to war because she's Ariana and she's cool like that.
Whoa.
But yeah, so we're a complete antagonistic state, and we have the whole big massive fight that's like 2 different anime at the same time.
Yeah.
And and then at the end of the fight, Rapunzel is like sad when she looks up at Varian in that mecha, because she's just like, she didn't want to go this way, and she probably does not fully understand what he has against her, that, and obviously she's gonna have some guilt because Rapunzel has a guilty conscience, but they never actually talked about the problem, So all she has gathered now is that he feels like nobody is willing to help him. And I kind of love the irony of him telling her that in the middle of her having just helped him twice. So clearly she is willing to help him, but he's too far gone at this point. And I don't mean too far gone as in beyond redeemable, but he is currently unable to see it. And so as he's being carted off, she requests of Frederick that he get help and not be, horribly punished. So honestly, I think when we see him again for real, he's going to be reintegrated into society and have a massive chip on his shoulder and have the she's right dad attitude about like everything. And I wanted to like reluctantly help them and be a little snarky butt the whole time. And
I'd love to see his reaction to finding out Eugene's a prince.
Oh my god, right? Oh my god, right?
I don't know what it's gonna be, and that makes me so happy. I'm like, what's it gonna be?
I had this thought the other day about him asking him for help and him being like, all right, I'll help you. You see how easy that was? You asked for help and I helped you. Why couldn't you do that? I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I want. I want
Give us the snark.
Yes.
Give us the snark.
Give us the snark. So yeah, and so then the next time we see Varian at all is in Rapunzel's nightmare when the idol of I do not dare try to pronounce it when it turns evil and gives her nothing but bad visions, and she sees Varian threatening Frederick, and literally all this is an extension of her subconscious, and she at this point is still afraid that Varian wants to hurt her family, and that's all he's got in his head is his desire to hurt her family. But later, as season 2 progresses, every time Varian is brought up, she looks sad.
Yeah.
So I am completely convinced at this point that she is no longer afraid of him, and she just feels bad for the way things happened, and she just wants to clear things up with him and try to be friends again, or at least be able to work with him again, So I fully anticipate her being contrite the next time she sees him, and he's going to be snarky, but she's also a lot stronger than she used to be. So she won't put up with the snark for too long, or she'll put up with it the way she puts up with, Cass's snark. So she'll be like, oh, well, that's just how Varian is. Tee-hee, because I'm Rapunzel. But yeah, so, I mean, this is where I see their relationship going. I think that he's free. He's not in prison. Honestly, everybody who thinks he's just been rotting in prison for the past year, I'm like, why do you want that for him? That's not what I want for him. I want him to have been getting his therapy and to be, out in society and doing stuff. My gosh, what if they made him eat some of his own cookies and were like, why did you do this? And he's like, I just want to help my dad. And they're like, oh. So yeah, so I honestly think that that's where we're going to be when we see him again. Other relationships we have, literally everybody with their own father is the same relationship.
Ridiculous.
All of them have the same relationship with their dad, which is start out, I just want to, do what you think is right. And be like, no, I have to go my own way. And now I'm going to do what I think is right. And that's everybody's relationship.
God, it is all the same, isn't it?
Right?
Man.
That's why I
You put it that way.
I put it in there because I was like, Well, we could talk about individual relationships, but they are all the same.
They are.
What
They're-
the frick?
Yeah. These characters with their dads, all the character with their dad relationships are the same. So I think in that one little snarky comment, I just summed up
Summed
all
it
of
right up.
Yeah.
all those relationships. So, okay. Eugene and Rapunzel, aka the OTP, aka the couple that could destroy the world with the power of their love. We love these people.
Yeah, they could.
Also, aka the only characters whose relationships we can go back farther than the series.
Mhm.
Woo!
Okay, so we all know how their relationship started out. It started out with, complete fear and confusion. Those were the two things that started out their relationship. Her smacking him on the head with the frying pan, and then hiding him in a closet and probably breaking his fingers in the process. And then he
Knocked me
wakes
out
up.
with that frying pan. I knew it was love.
Oh.
Cutest line.
Oh.
Okay, honestly, here's the thing. My favorite line of his from Tangled Before Ever After is the speech about, I thought we had something great and I want to keep that going.
Oh my
That is,
gosh.
that's my favorite line, but the proposal is like a really close second. Like, oh my god. But so he wakes up from that and he's utterly confused by, first of all, the fact that he seems to be tied up in a continuous thing of hair. And then she comes down and he's like stunned by her beauty, and she's already had her moment of being stunned by his beauty. But then she like literally doesn't know what he's doing when he's flirting with her. And that is like still hysterically funny.
So
That
good.
he's like, I'm gonna flirt with you. And she's like, why are you making that face? That doesn't make any sense. And then it's like never worked again on her ever. He must have been so thrilled in Mirror to actually have the smolder work on someone who looked like Rapunzel. Like,
Oh, hey there, beautiful. I love that. Oh my god. It was just so great because I was like, Mirror Rapunzel is literally all of us. Like, my god.
Yeah.
Not a single one of us can deny it. We're all like, yeah, that's
Right,
what
that's
happens.
us. That's
Every
what
time
it's like.
Like,
Like,
especially at the theme parks. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I was saying
Every time he
straight
does
up,
this, I'm just like,
when you're at the
"Hello."
theme park and he smolders at you like Eugene smolders in your face, you are powerless against it. Like, dude, oh my god, that is so tough to deal with.
The first time I met him afterwards, I was so happy and excited and shaky, and he had smoldered at me that I walked out of the room and collapsed into a table at Pinocchio's restaurant. I just like fell into a chair like an 1800s Victorian woman on a fainting couch. I was like, ah.
Oh, it's gonna be me.
I mean,
It's gonna be me.
I'm in my late 30s. Y'all know I'm in my late 30s, and yet if he smolders at me at the parks, I'm suddenly 16 years old, and like my knees are weak, and I'm like, oh Lord, someone help me up. It's so bad.
I was 13 when I met him for the first time, so it's not that far off. Like,
Yeah.
correct
Yeah.
response.
It is too powerful in person. It is too powerful.
But now I'm 21 and the same thing happens. I'm like, Eugene.
Yep. And then you have to go and bash your head into his wanted poster.
Yes. Oh my god.
So,
love
I mean,
it.
we all know how the movie goes. That they start off as, these helping each other through bribery, and then he plans to like scare her back into the tower, and that doesn't work, and then he starts to admire her strength and her fortitude, and then they become friends, and then they like share secrets, and then they start kind of liking each other, and then like they go on an actual date that wasn't supposed to be romantic but ended up romantic, and
And then he dies.
and then like sacrifice their lives for each other. I mean, it's a pretty solid basis for a relationship right there.
Yep.
It'll last.
So our series starts out, and honestly, I was so thrilled that this series started out showing them being friends. Like,
Mhm.
it is so important to me that they're friends with each other, that they're not just romantically inclined, that there's actually this good basis of friendship on them. And so, yeah, I love that that's a fact.
Mhm.
And then he proposes, and things get weird. And one of the things that he says in his whole apology thing was like, I know I jumped the gun a little. And so he's acknowledging that he's moving too fast, and that they haven't really talked about getting married, you know? Maybe they had mentioned someday they'll get married, but not like that they want it to happen anytime soon. So, I mean, clearly Rapunzel was not ready for this in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And she was, you know, obviously happy at first until he started to mention staying in the palace forever. Had he not included that line, it might have been a solid yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she freaked out and she takes off. And so for the first couple episodes of the series, their relationship's a little bit shaky. They're feeling, you know.
That sad face he makes when he knows is talking about, you know.
And Max is showing him that she's sneaking off with Cass. Oh my god. Yeah, so he's like, he
the
feels
first
like
of many kicked puppy
I
Eugene
love
faces.
I love kick puppy Eugene face.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Eugene being vulnerable is the very best. But the funny thing is that going back and watching season 1 and watching his nuance of expression, he is so much more expressive now than he was at the beginning of season 1. It's amazing. Like, you can actually start seeing at what point the animation started to really improve, and it was around the return of Strongbow.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really great expression started coming in. And it's just like, oh, now it's just getting better and better from here on out.
I think that's the most, or the episode I've made the most icons for, is Return of Strongbow, because he makes so many good faces.
He does.
I was like, oh my god,
It's
every
amazing.
face is gold.
So, I mean, that's going to be one of those ones that's very hard for me to, like, pick my actual favorite line from the episode.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, so, you know, it starts out a little bit rocky, then they agree to no more secrets. And that's all well and good. And then, like, for most of season 1, the relationship is pretty easy sailing. Eugene does, however, show regularly that he will leave decisions up to Rapunzel. That, like, he's allowing her the choice and the freedom to do what she wants. So she's like, I don't know what to do. Or, like, here are my options. And he'll say, it's your call. You know? The only time he did not do that was after her nightmare that left her tied up to the top of her tower and he had to catch her as she fell. And then he was a little too shaken to be like, it's your call. That was when he's like, maybe you should stay in the palace, you know? So that was the only time he actually offered a solid thing instead of saying, well, whatever you want to do, you know? But for the rest of the time, their relationship has been based very strongly on him giving her the freedom she never had. And that's super cool. We, of course, have, you know, Beyond the Corona Walls, where all of a sudden she finds out that he's going to marry his ex-fiance. Nothing shocking about that.
Nah.
And so that was the moment where through all of season 1, I complained time and time again that she still was not actually communicating with him. That anytime she was upset about things, she tended to just continue to block it off and be like, I'm sorry, I just need a little bit of time. And you'd be like, okay, I'll give you all the time you need. And that happened like multiple times, but she rarely told him what she was actually thinking, because you get the impression that she doesn't want to burden him. And that's probably something that Gothel, like, instilled in her is if you talk about your problems, then you're being a burden.
Feel that way, sis. I relate.
Yeah.
Hey,
I don't know what that feels like at all.
No.
gosh, not a lickety split, and everybody wonders why I to Rapunzel. So, but then in Beyond the Corona Walls, for the first time, she actively communicates with him, and she's, you know, they spend the whole episode not communicating, and, you know, all he can say is like, yeah, I'm marrying her, but he won't say why, and you know, because, you know, on pain of Lance's death, he won't say why. So, you know, there's this lack of communication, but then you reach Rapunzel being like, okay, look, here's the deal. You know, I have not been forthright with you, so now I'm going to be completely forthright with you. And then he does like that little exhale of relief that I love so, so much, and that lovesick smile, and it's just so wonderful, and I love it so much. So, you know, we've got a lot more very stable relationship after that, and a lot more of him just, you know, building up this whole, it's your choice, it's your choice, it's your choice. Let's go get your destiny. Let's go get your destiny. Let's go get your destiny. And then he freaking denies her destiny to save her life.
What a stinker.
But then, he turns around and well, sings a very sad solo. But after that,
You broke her.
it was a little bit deliberate. But then, all things considered, he very quickly turned that around. Like, that was from, like, the halfway point to the back end of the episode in less time than it took for that to resolve. Yeah. He was all like, you know what, screw that. She's wonderful, and she's strong, and this is her destiny, and I'm going to let her do her thing, because I've always let her do her thing.
He's so like, my dad doesn't know nothing. She'll destroy the world before she dies. Like, come on, Dad. Whatever. You had a great moment in Lost and Found where he realizes that the only faith he has in the entire world is in Rapunzel. Like, he doesn't believe in anything, but he believes in her. And she's like, oh,
so
and
good.
His face in her.
The very next episode when he's like, I believe in my destiny, which is to keep Rapunzel away from hers. And it's like, Eugene, you dumb, stupid idiot. Why are you like this?
But then, so it's like, oh my God, I love him so much. I love the relationship so much. But like, his declaration of his faith in her is what gives her her magic back. And it's not 100% on why this works, other than maybe she was doubting herself. I actually had this thought that at the end of Secret of the Sundrop, when he catches her and she's like, hi, and he's like, we've got to find a better way to spend your birthdays. Like, maybe she felt enough fear and doubt in him that she started to doubt herself, because her hair does not glow from that moment until Lost and Found. And like, we don't know why, because the first indication that nothing's going to happen is when she grabs the rocks and nothing happens. Also, which was at the wedding. Yeah. When she was already doubting him. So, like, their faith in each other is actually what makes her work so well. Like, she's got to be fully confident, and he gives her her confidence. So it's just so perfect. I love them. I'm sorry. I'm emotional. Okay. So yeah, so Rapunzel and Eugene are great, and they're going to be great forever, and they will never not be great. The end.
Yep.
And now the great big season 2 cliffhanger relationship. Rapunzel and Cassandra. So, we've gotten a very small insight into their relationship before the series starts, and that's the thing that we saw in Rapunzel Day 1, when we get to see a tiny little flashback when, Rapunzel clearly had not been there that long, maybe a couple weeks tops, and Cass had introduced her to the library and all that fun stuff, and she's bringing home the pile of books. And
Isn't that a great tree?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm thinking back. I'm like, I don't remember this scene.
That happened way too fast. All of it. The last half of season 2.
Yeah, I know, right? That was just one big episode.
Right? So in Great Tree when all this is happening. So you get that that whole just, and they're insisting on nicknames, and that's a really sweet development. You see that they start off in this niceness that. I get the impression that Cassandra just doesn't have many friends, and it's not because she's trying to have friends either. She just doesn't care if she has friends or not. So actually, she's made like a ton of friends on this journey, and that's kind of significant to Cass. So so they start out nice and sweet, and she's a really good role model for Rapunzel in that she is very strong and she's outspoken. And, she chases her dreams. And Rapunzel's always been big on chasing her dreams. Even though Cassandra claims to not have dreams, she's a big fat liar. She's got dreams. I think that what Cassandra's actually been trained to do is to think of them as goals and not as dreams, Because maybe to Cassandra, dreams are something that you just wish for, but goals are something you work towards. So, they have this, it's simultaneously best friends, but also employer-boss or employer-employee relationship. That was actually one of the big deals in Challenge of the Brave, is that Cass couldn't really tell her boss no. Yeah. And that's why she wasn't forthright with Rapunzel about not wanting her to be there, And she's like, "You're the princess. I can't really tell you no," you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you have that moment in Challenge of the Brave that we all hate and writhe and grit our teeth and want to punch Cassandra in the face for. Which I don't know, is like foreshadowing to the end of season 2. Like
I just showed that episode to my friend who hasn't watched any of the series and isn't nearly as obsessed with Tangled as I am, but you know, she likes it. She loves Tangled as well. But she was just like, "No, that's not how friends are. That's not a friend. Like Rapunzel shouldn't have forgiven her. They shouldn't be hugging right now." And I was like,
"You're preaching to the choir."
Preaching to the choir. We have been saying this for over a year.
For years now. It's been like 2 years
actually. God. So I was like, no, I completely understand and 100% agree with you. It is not. She's like, how are they even still friends after this? And I'm like, I don't know.
That's who Rapunzel is. That's
yeah.
Dang.
Yep. She's so forgiving.
She is. She's always big on the second chances and the third chances and all the chances.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it goes on. We watch their relationship develop. And Rapunzel spends a lot of time, like, not knowing what to do. And she's always turning to the people around her, asking for advice and help and whatnot. And Cass is always there to lend an opinion. And as season 2 starts in, this starts to become not a problem, but as Rapunzel just gets her freedom, she also begins to discover herself.
Mm-hmm.
And this being Rapunzel's journey of self is actually really important, because when we see Rapunzel day 1 and we go back to how she was right before she left the tower, we suddenly become aware of how much she has changed. And that's really significant, that she is so much stronger than she used to be, that her in Great Tree, her putting her foot down and saying, "No, I am making a decision, and it's not that I don't value your opinion, but I don't have to listen to you either." Mm-hmm. You know, that's the thing about opinions, is that people don't have to listen to your opinions. So you get a hint of it in Freebird. And at this point in the game, it feels like Freebird would have been better placed later in the series, you know, after they had, because that was a very wacky thing to happen early in the season 2.
Yeah.
If they had had that kind of wackiness and that kind of, like, relationship tension maybe right before Great Tree, it would have made a little bit more sense, you know? But yeah, so you get the whole thing about, like, you're being selfish, and so now Cass is actively comfortable with telling Rapunzel how she feels, which she wasn't before. You see some of that in Under Wraps, when she's like, "Look, you have to, like, give me my space, you know? I don't mind sharing things with you, but I also want to be able to keep things from you, and that's on me. You don't get to know everything about everyone. Just, that's how people work, you know?" And so Cass is a little more blunt with Rapunzel and teaches her more about society than Eugene does. Eugene is a lot quicker to just be like, no, honey, everything's okay. And Cass is much more likely to be like, "It means he hates you," you know? So, I mean, and so you're getting a lot of that. You watch the development, how Cass is teaching Rapunzel about society, and how as Rapunzel learns more and more about society and finds her own feet, she needs help less and less. And that bothers Cassandra, because Cassandra has really enjoyed being the person that Rapunzel goes to. Just, you know, she's like, "Oh, well, I'm your go-to, and that's not cool that you don't need me anymore," you know? But I saw this observation on Tumblr, and I have to absolutely agree with it. Now, part of the problem there is that Cassandra has actually become too complicit. Complicit? That's not the word I'm looking for. She's become too comfortable with her role in Rapunzel's life, that when Adira calls her a lady in waiting, she's really upset about it. But the fact of the matter is, Adira's right. That Cassandra is out here as Rapunzel's guard, as her servant. Yes, she's her friend also, but Cassandra had been feeling less like an employee and more like a friend. And while that's a good thing, she also was literally still her employee. And that means that Rapunzel is not I mean, obviously, it's just sort of like how Frederick doesn't have to listen to Nigel. Rapunzel doesn't have to listen to Cassandra, you know? It's like and that's just how it also goes with like any relationships. You are not required to do what the other person says ever.
Yeah.
Ever. You're never required to do what the other people say. And if you have an opinion that varies from them and you think you're right, then you have every right to go with what you think is right. And Cass isn't okay with this. And the next big turn we see, you've got Rapunzel Day 1, where I really like the conclusion reached in Rapunzel Day 1, because people think of it as they made up, but literally they came to the conclusion of, I'm still mad, but I will eventually get over it. And so that anger may have still been lurking under the surface in Cassandra, who we already know holds grudges.
Yeah.
No, because how long did she hold on to her dislike of Eugene? How long did she hold on to her dislike of Adira? Like, she will dislike these people for like a year and a half before she'll change her mind about them. Lance is lucky. He got like 6 months or something. I don't know. Less than that. No, about 6 months, I guess. Anyway, yeah. Regardless. But yeah, so Cass will keep her opinion of somebody for a very long time, and she still thinks of Rapunzel as somebody who's helpless and needs other people taking care of her, despite the fact that Rapunzel has grown past that. So in Rapunzel Day 1, we also see that Cass is willing to use what she knows about Rapunzel against her if it will get her to her goal, which is kind of like her hiding her frying pan. It's less treacherous in this situation, but it is still the same personality trait of, well, I know what you need, and I'm going to present it to you in a way that benefits me. So, in Challenge of the Brave, it was, I will present it to you not at all. In Rapunzel Day 1, it was, oh, yeah, I'm going to get you back to the tower, or, don't worry about that. Ruffians and thugs kidnapped you, and I fought them off, and I'll save you. So she used Rapunzel's fear in order to gain her trust, So she's always had this, I want to say connivingness to her, although it's not malicious, so conniving is not really the right word. So I still don't think that Cass is holding any specific hatred of Rapunzel. Like, at the end of the season, I don't feel like this is done to be anti-Rapunzel. I feel like it's done to be pro-Cassandra. Like, it's really interesting watching how, especially the last half of season 2. So ever since she gets the arm burn, things just start changing. Mm-hmm. And then you get to Rapunzeltopia, where, Cass is lured through a door, and then when she comes out on the other side, she's pissed off at Rapunzel again. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I can't wait to find out what happened in that door, because, dude. And so we get to Destinies Collide, and, you have With You by My Side, and all of Cassandra's lines are about going separate ways and reaching the end of their journey, and,
You know what's funny? The first time I heard that, I was like, okay, so something's going to happen to Eugene. Something's going to happen to Rapunzel. I'm like, I don't know what Cass is singing about. I don't know what she's talking about. Whatever. I'm like, what are you talking about, Cass?
What are you talking about?
I didn't even give it any thought. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, the signs, they were there.
They were there. They're still there. Yeah. So, so you get to the end of the episode, and Cass pulls this I still don't like calling it a betrayal.
Yeah.
She did turn on Rapunzel, but I use betrayal a lot because that is how Rapunzel feels, but we don't know her motivation yet. And I am so hesitant to I will not call her evil. I don't think Cass is evil. I think Cass is less evil now than Varian was in Secret of the Sun Drop. And I didn't like calling him evil either. It's absolutely a misguided type of thing. But yeah, so throughout the episode, Cassandra is still helping Rapunzel, and she's one of the people who was like, Eugene really does love you that much. And we now all sit there and we watch that episode and we're like, but how much of this was just to get her to the moon drop, and how much of this was genuine? And so it's a real head scratcher, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes on, because you look at Under Wraps and we know that Cassandra can act when she needs to. Mm-hmm. Because Under Wraps is like a whole bunch of acting. Yay. So their relationship is really under the microscope right now. A lot of people think, or some people, I don't even know what the numbers are, but some people think that, Cass has been planning this from the beginning of the series, which I do not agree to. Because I don't think Cass even knew about the moon drop at the beginning of the series. There's no indication that she did. I literally think that this is whatever happened behind the door is what spurred on this whole thing. And then people have noticed that in Destiny's Collide, she's using her bad arm just fine.
Mm.
It can be one of two things, though. She did spend several episodes deliberately working on the dexterity and strength of that arm. So maybe they're trying to say, oh, she can use it again. Or maybe they're trying to say, oh, she refuses to take her armor off because her arm is fine now.
Yeah.
Or, so there's so many questions going on. Like people have speculated that she's possessed, and maybe it's just her arm that's possessed. Or, so God only
That
knows.
would be crazy.
Well, yeah.
Oh my God! Wait, if it's just her arm, then we have really, really gone back, because that's almost exactly like Rapunzel's hair having a mind of its own.
Oh my
Which would be
gosh.
ridiculous, and I don't know how I would feel about that. But if Cassandra's arm somehow had a mind of its own, I'd be like, what?
I feel like the homage.
How many drugs did you guys take?
Take one that Eugene and Rapunzel took. I feel like the homage to Rapunzel's hair having a mind of its own is literally Rapunzel's hair reacting to her nightmares and floating around the room and grabbing Pascal and climbing up the tower and doing all that crap. So that's what I think the homage to her hair having a mind of its own is. But so we're now at this point where we're like, God only knows how this is going from here, and I have things that I would like to see happen in season 2. And things that I think might be the way that they will go, but I am also at the point now where I acknowledge that they have not told us everything, and I know that they haven't told us everything. And so they've got secrets, and there's no point in me speculating because they're going to throw out some information that I hadn't even considered. And so this is where we are. This is a very interesting place for the season to have ended because, we've got Lance at main character status and Eugene at prince status and Cassandra at villain status and Rapunzel at are you even capable of fulfilling your destiny now status and Zantiri at haha, the last time you saw me I was in this house status and had awesome abs. Just ask that statue. What the hell was with that statue? What was with that statue, man?
He was jacked.
He was jacked. I actually saw somebody post a screen cap the other day and be like, dude, I want a statue of him.
Right.
Right? Dang. So that's where we are, and it's crazy and it's nutso and hello heights.
Yeah.
So that's about wrapping it up for this time around, guys. Again, there's links to all of that stuff that we were talking about in the artist notes, artist commentary below. Since we're on hiatus again, Tangled Talk is going to be doing an every other week schedule. We do have some ideas for what we're going to be doing going on, but we still would love to hear your suggestions and your comments. Anything?
Also, if anyone wants to be on the show, we would love to have you. We are definitely thinking about having lots of good guests.
Yeah, we got to make up for the
love to
last
have-
hiatus when we didn't have anybody on.
We
Sorry
would
about
love
that.
We have some very exciting guests planned, but we'd also love to have more fans on. So
one thing, we've had so many people tell us that they feel like they're a part of the conversation that it has occurred to me that every time we mention posts that we saw on Tumblr or comments that people have made to us, we are making you guys part of the conversation. And when we have you guys on as guests, you are part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So we really do want to make Tangle Talk. We love having everybody be involved in this. So go ahead, leave your comments, leave your suggestions about things we can talk about. Before anybody else suggests it, because we've got this 2 or 3 times in the past week, we are going to review Layla Howland's books of Rapunzel and the Vanishing Village and Rapunzel and the Lost Lagoon, only in the opposite order. That's going to be next week. That's what we're talking about next week. So the three of us have some reading to do because I don't know the last time you guys read those books.
It's been a while.
Dude. Oh, I don't even know where my oh, they're in the closet. Never mind. I was like, where are they? Oh God.
So we are going to review those books. We're going to talk about them. So you don't need to suggest that again because we are going to do that one. But yeah, anything else you'd like to hear us talk about? There is a chance that we have talked about it previously. I had somebody suggest the other day that we talk about the movie. That was episode 12 of Tangled Talk, was the movie. Yes. So if you want to go back and listen to that. So yeah, all of our past episodes are things like the stuff that happened in season 1, the movie, just how we feel about the characters in general. We've got a lot of older stuff that happened during the last hiatus when we had no new episodes to talk about. So we started talking about any little thing we could think of. So yeah, continue making suggestions, leave your comments. We love hearing from you guys. And we will talk to you next time. So thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.